Hello, everybody. How are you doing? My name is Brigida Toruño, and welcome to Uno Soul's Chat. Today, I am so honored to be chatting with Daniela Moro Williams, and she's an Uno Soul. She is the chef and owner of Cucinamore, LLC. It's a wonderful company where she is a personal chef that will come and cook in front of you and your guests and create a delicious Italian feast. Welcome, Daniela.
Thank you so much for having me, Brigitta.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm honored that you're here. Tell me, how have you been doing during our surreal year of the pandemic?
Oh, it's been definitely something I had never experienced before, like all of us, I'm assuming. It's been frightening, but it's also been a time for learning about life, about myself. So I always try to see both sides of the things that life put in front of me.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to know, and I know our listening audience would love to know your story, if you would be open to sharing your story with us.
Oh, absolutely. Well, when you were asking me how I was, and I told you, it was hard. I think I will start from there. Probably the hardest part in this pandemic has been for me to be forced to be apart from my family. And the
Mhm,
reason is that I was born and raised in Italy, in
mhm.
the city of Treviso, which is a small town not far from Venice, so in the
Oh,
northeast of the country. And all of my original family is still there. I don't have anybody here in the US. So, for as much as I'm used to live apart,
mhm.
and never before was I forced to live apart. So that was really hard. And so I told you that's where I was born. That's where I lived most of my adult life.
Mhm.
Um, I was in a completely different field professionally
Oh,
before coming to the US. I was in the corporate travel industry in Italy
mm,
for many, many years, more than 2 decades.
mm.
But I always wanted to be a chef,
Oh,
uh, even as a young student. That's what I wanted to be my profession. But my parents didn't let me,
mhm.
neither my parents or my teachers, because in Italy there was, especially for my generation, I'm not exactly 18, so
You're 19, I think.
or 19. Back in those days in Italy, working in the kitchen was only for those who didn't do well in school. That
I
was
see.
pretty much the idea.
Mm,
And that was not the case for me. So neither my parents or my teacher let me. But
mm.
this stubborn.
Yes.
So when I came to the US, first thing I did was going back. No, not first thing I did. I found a job here in a gourmet grocery store. That was my first job in the US.
Okay.
And they assigned me to this cooking demonstration department, which
Mm.
I was on cloud nine. I was so happy.
Oh, I bet.
And that gave me really the motivation to go back to school and get my first professional cooking certificate.
Mm.
And I'm so glad I did, because it opened up this brand new opportunity for me. Just like the iconic American dream, I
Yes,
was able here in the US to do something that's really my biggest passion in life, which means working with food and with people. And
yeah.
Cucinamore allows me to do this, and I've been doing that for 8 years now. Super
Mm.
happy where I am.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I always say there's nothing like working in your passion.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
it's it's
Absolutely.
it's so important. So I'm
Yeah,
so
work is work for
right.
everybody, and it will
Yes,
always bring you challenges and moments that are not so happy. But if what motivates you is your passion, you will always find a way to wake up, you know, and keep going and keep doing your best.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. I believe in the concept of nourishing your soul, right? And I know you and I have talked about that. I know that that's important to you too. And I feel like this nourishment can come from many different sources and places and situations. But definitely one of the very important ones is food and the nourishment of food for our souls, for our bodies.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's all in how you approach things, right? Perspective is everything in life.
Mhm.
And it truly is what you just described. Truly is my my number one why in doing what I do, because food to me and in my culture, probably it has to do with the fact that I come from a country where food is so important, but it's not important per se. It's important because most of the times it's just an excuse, it's a tool for bringing people together.
Mhm.
And this is exactly, like I said, the core of my business. I use my food beyond the meal. I like it as a way to get people around a table in the kitchen. I always say this to my clients: in the kitchen before the dining room, before the formal dining room. That's where everything happens.
That's right.
Because, food is something pleasant for most of us.
Mhm.
And when people are together in a room and they're enjoying something better, they are in a better disposition. Is that the right word? Uh,
Yes,
for talking and getting to know each other better. So talking and listening, because when you have your mouth full, you have to shut up and listen at one point.
that's right. Yes.
Right? So you're forced to do something that sometimes it's hard for us to do because we're so focused on talking, on saying, that sometimes we forget to listen. So I put some food in people's mouth so they have to listen.
That's
And
right.
by doing that, chances are they might learn something new about the other person in the room. And that, and the whole thing that you got some good food going, good aromas, maybe you put some music on, maybe you pour a glass of wine or whatever drink makes you happy,
Mhm.
and then you are more willing and ready to get to know other people better, and that can only bring good stuff in life, don't you think?
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Daniela. And I really admire your work. And I was very lucky to experience your talent and really your love for what you do and the food that you make, the love that you put into it, because you were in my home a couple of months ago and you did that feast for some friends of mine. And I was just blown away because the food, of course, was delicious, but it was the whole presentation, the whole how you explain things in a loving way. And really it's the way somebody cooks, the love that they put into the food that they're making is then reflected even and when you eat it. I mean, that whole like love for chocolate, or what was that movie called from Mexico? Love, oh, like water for chocolate, I think.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, that whole idea. I mean, I just really admire the work that you do. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I speak not just for the Italian chefs, but for the whole food industry here. There's so much that goes, like many other professions too. There's so much that goes into what we do. There's a very technical and professional level. I'm not gonna lie. You need to know what you're doing, in the tech, which means cooking, of course, but also the food safety, how you handle food, how you prepare, how you present it, of course. And then there's the passion that we were talking about before, and then there's that secret ingredient, love, that has to be there, because if it's not there, there's no meaning in what you do. And to me, whatever I do, it has to be meaningful. It might not be the right meaning, but it has to be meaningful.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I love quotes, and there are a couple of quotes. Do you mind if I share them with you?
Please do. Please do.
There's one from Giada de Laurentiis,
Mhm.
and she says, food brings people together on many different levels. It's nourishment of the soul and body. It's truly love. And I think that's what we just talked about. That it just really makes such a difference.
Absolutely. And there's another one, and I didn't prepare this, and I'm old and forgetful. So I can quote the quote, but not the person who did it. And I
That's okay.
apologize for this.
That's
But
it.
it goes, you have to taste a culture to understand it. And I
Oh,
love that one too. It's traveling blogger, but I'm so sorry. It
that's
escapes me.
okay.
Her
That's
name
a
escapes
great
me right now.
one.
But I love it because again, it's not about the Italian culture. So many cultures express themselves through food. And if you think about it, even if it's unintentional, because the ingredients that are part of certain specific ethnic food reflect what that country produces, right? And what they produces, there has to be somebody who produced it. And you can tell so much from ethnic food about the culture that
Yeah.
brought that food to the table.
Yeah, very nice. I completely agree with you. Growing up Latina of parents from Ecuador and Argentina, sitting at the kitchen table after having a delicious dinner cooked by my grandmother from Ecuador or my father from Argentina, it was everything. It spoke so much to me. It made me feel like I grew up in a Latino silo here in Alexandria, Virginia, where I grew up. I felt completely within the Latino culture, and a lot of it was because of the food and everything, and staying at the table afterwards and feeling the warmth of family and the laughing and the joking, and yeah.
And that truly nourishes your soul, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
And I also believe, you were mentioning different cultures, and that takes me back to another concept that's really important for me. So I always say that I cook authentic, contemporary Italian food, and it matters to me because it's who I am, it's my identity, it's my roots, and I share it with people who are willing to open their homes to me to taste that. But at the same time, though, I sometimes get, when people say, "Oh, if you don't do food that specific way, you're not doing it authentic, so it's bad." And that is not 100% true to me because I feel like any kind of ethnic food, when it's brought somewhere else, it evolves. It turns into something different because it's like if you took a plant and you would uproot it from one how do you say it in English, from one soil and replant it somewhere else, it changes somehow, right? But that doesn't mean that it's bad or better or worse. It's just different. And with people moving around the globe and their culture moving around the globe and their food moving around the globe, I find it fascinating how things get contaminated, and you can have sort of, think of the Tex-Mex food, right?
Right.
It's definitely not authentic Mexican food.
That's
It's
right.
not pure Texan food, but does it make it worse or better? No, it's just different. And to me, it's so exciting to
Mhm.
see where it went. And it's the same with the Italian American food. I always joke with my clients that I never had spaghetti with meatballs until I came to America. And that is the pure truth. It's not something we normally do back at home.
I
But that
see.
doesn't mean that I don't enjoy a good dish of spaghetti with meatballs if I find a good one, right? And I think at the end of the day, it always comes down to having an open mind and an open heart. That's all
Mhm.
that it takes to enjoy life best we can
Oh, I love that.
and nourish our soul best we can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Daniela. I was wondering if it was possible to maybe get a little hint around a recipe, maybe?
You know what? I thought about it before we had this conversation, and I was thinking, should I share a recipe, or? And then I thought, no. So the answer is no. You cannot have a recipe.
Oh no!
No, I'm telling you something. I mean, there's plenty of recipes out there, some amazing one, and even for a dinosaur like me, technology helped looking up recipes. But I thought uh, there are some tips and tricks about something that I think can be interesting for a lot of people out there. That I would like to share, take it for what it is, and tell you how I do certain things and see it might be
Yes,
useful for you. And I'm
great.
thinking homemade pizza.
Whoa.
How stereotyped is that for an Italian?
That's great.
I could have given you tips on sushi, but
Right.
you're probably safer with getting tips on pizza from me.
Yeah,
So
that sounds like a
let's
good
stick
thing.
it to what I know I can be of help.
Yes.
So I wanted first of all to debunk a myth, which is you can only have good pizza if you go to a pizzeria.
Mm.
So granted that, there are certain technicalities that make uh, a pizza from a pizzeria unparalleled. Is that a
Mhm.
word, or did I make that up?
That makes, yeah, that's fine. Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but you can actually get some pretty good pizza at home if you only focus on a few key elements that I would like to share with you.
Yes, please.
So, number one, I'm going to state the obvious, the dough. So, if there are two ways to go about dough when you make it at home, you make it yourself or you buy the dough. If you make it yourself, again, we go back to the recipes that we were talking about before. There are a million out there, plenty of great recipes. My little tip is don't expect to make good dough for pizza in a couple hours. So if there is the chance to make pizza in a couple hours with a lot of yeast, but chances are you're not gonna get a good pizza. So if you want to make the dough yourself and have great pizza dough, invest in time and patience, because the best way to do it is to start the day before. It's not complicated, but in its time. You need to start it the day before, let it patiently rest, and then have it the next day for dinner. Or these days, even American grocery stores carry some amazing pizza dough. And I am not ashamed to say, even if I've been making pizza dough since I was 6, I'm not ashamed to say that I buy my share of pizza dough in the grocery store over here. And I find that in years, I can find some great quality pizza dough. And even, whatever pizza you make with a store-bought pizza dough is going to be better than any frozen pizza that you can find in the frozen aisle. So go for it. So once that we've established that we have a good dough in hand, um, make stretching it is another key step. First of all, make sure it's a room temperature. So if you bought it specifically, or if you made it ahead of time, get it out of the freezer slash fridge in time to get it to room temperature before you attempt to stretch it. And notice I said stretch it and not roll it,
Mm.
because that nice rolling pin that you use for pastry, throw it away. You you
Oh.
never want to use a rolling pin when you make pizza dough, because that long process that I was telling you about, that the dough needs to rise and produce that airy dough. If you use a rolling pin, you're gonna waste all that time and effort, right?
Oh.
So again, I'm gonna ask you to look up. There are so many videos out there on how to properly stretch pizza dough. It's not difficult at all. You just need to know not to press too hard. And one very important thing is have patience. Um, because the gluten, which is what gives elasticity to the dough, which is what holds the dough together and allow us to stretch it, if you overwork it, it's gonna bounce back. Have you ever tried to stretch the dough and it goes back to where it was?
Yeah.
It happens when you overwork it. So you have to be patient. And if that is the case, if it happens, don't panic. Just let it sit there on the table for 10 minutes. Go pour yourself a glass of wine. It'll make you happier and give you more. Did I say that aloud?
No, it's okay. It's all good.
I meant lemonade.
Right.
And those 10 minutes will allow the gluten to relax, and you will go back and keep stretching. Then there are all those funny ways of throwing it up there. It's not necessary, but stretch it with patience with your hands, and you will get a much better crust. Other than that, there really isn't much else to say other than don't overdo with the toppings. Remember that the main element that makes the pizzeria pizza different from any pizza that you make at home is the temperature of the oven. The pizzeria oven goes to over 900 degrees. I don't know about your oven, but mine barely gets to 500.
Exactly.
When in a good day, right? So make sure you heat up you preheat your oven to the highest temperature that it can reach. If you have a stone, use a stone, but then don't put too many toppings on your pizza. Even the sauce, don't overdo with sauce. More is less.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for explaining that. It made me hungry for pizza. And I have to be really, really honest with you. I have never made homemade pizza. I'm very embarrassed to say.
We need to get together once and make it just for fun.
Yeah.
And you see, it's really, very often what we don't know intimidates us and scare us. And it's always a matter of pushing ourselves just a little, to experience something that new. And then we look back and say, why didn't I do this earlier? And it applies to so many things in life. And I bet you pizza is one of those. It's so much easier to do it than talking about it.
Yeah. I would love that. I would be honored to be able to learn how to make pizza with you.
We'll make it happen.
Great. Thank you, Daniela. And I would, during this past year and a half now, I've asked people in the Uno Souls chat, what is a moment of savoring the deliciousness for you? It started like the phrase came into my mind when chatting with a friend for like 4 hours. It was just like this easy flow. And it just felt so good that I thought, oh, that was a moment of savoring the deliciousness, or a beautiful walk in nature. And like you said at the beginning, this time has sort of given us a chance to get to know ourselves better, and because we've been isolated. But what do you see as a moment of savoring the deliciousness that you've had in this past year and a half?
I would probably say the gift of time, because being forced to slow down, like the very first 3 months in the pandemic, I didn't work at all. At least I didn't work at my clients' homes. And that all of a sudden made me slow down, which was something that I had not done in a long time. And while I can absolutely relate to what you just mentioned, like finally having long conversations with friends and all of that, one other thing that I think was a moment that I was like, oh, nice. I went back, for instance, to listening to whole albums, as old dinosaurs like me call them.
Right.
I, well, to me, to my generation, when we used to buy music, you used to buy the album. At least that's what I
Yeah,
used to
me
do.
too.
I used to save my money and then
Mhm.
buy the album.
Yeah.
And then you would listen it from the begin. You would listen to it from the beginning to the end, right? So one singer, one band, that album, and you would focus on that, and you would actually savor it, and you would understand the message that the artist had put through that work in a much deeper way than simply listening to one ear to a song on the radio while I'm doing 75 other things at the same time, right?
Right.
So uh, I use, these modern things like, the streaming options, to actually listening to whole albums. And that was really a moment of luxury for me,
Yeah.
that I said, this is nice. I had not done that in those 25 years.
Yeah, that's great. That's very nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Daniela, I wondered if you could leave us with some words of wisdom.
I'm not the wise person to begin
I
with,
think you
but
are.
well, thank you. I deceived you well. But there is something that I would like to share because it matters to me a lot, and it is, don't look at food as the enemy. I think that there has been a trend in the past few time to demonize food. And while I'm absolutely aware, of course, I'm not talking about all those medical situations in which, you know, treating food with, a lot of attention is very important. But granted that moderation is the key for everybody and in everything. Um, Maybe approaching food from a different perspective can help us not only to live a better life in terms of getting some stress out of our life, but also a healthier life. Food can be good when treated with respect. And while it might be sometimes the reason why we gain those extra pounds, it can also be the reason why we're spending quality time with a friend, while we are enjoying some seasonal fruit or vegetable when they are meant to be enjoyed, and really savoring them at their best, and stopping for, how they say, stop and smell the roses. I say,
Mhm.
stop and bite into that peach,
Mm.
or that watermelon when they are meant to be savored. So again, moderation by all means, attention to anything that's bad for us. But let's go back to look at food as a gift that we are given. Let's go get to know our farmer a little better, our, local small shop. Let's look at it as as something that enriches and nourishing our souls,
Oh,
beside, on top of our bellies.
yeah, that's wonderful. I really, really love those words of wisdom, Daniela, because I think you're absolutely right. You hit on a very key point that, you know, um, a lot of the world is, concerned about weight. And then you're right that the food becomes, the demon, and that's not how it should be. And everything in moderation, and just savoring what's going in your mouth at that moment, enjoying it, thanking the earth, right, for giving us a lot of this food, for the person who made it with love, for the people around you that you're getting a chance to listen to and to speak with. So it brings beautiful moments. So
And also, I think that, if we don't have too high expectations of ourselves. You don't need to be a 3-star chef in order to stay away from processed food a little more. I mean, we need to be realistic. We need to cut ourselves some slack, and it's okay sometimes to resort to the frozen dinner if that's what's needed that day to keep going. But sometimes let's also understand that knowing some very basic cooking skills, you don't it might be all that we need to put a healthier meal on the table to enjoy with our family. It can be done.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so I would love to, when we post this, I'd love to be able to put out your information, but if you want to tell us the name of your website or what the best way is to reach you so that they can find out how to get your services.
Absolutely. We have a website with Cucinamore. It's called cucinamore.net, where
Okay.
you can find all the information about who we are and what we do. You can also find our menus options, our pricing, our availability. We're super transparent. You can find pretty much everything on the website, and you can also contact us if you need to be in touch with us. And truly, whether you're reserving a party or just need some information, please feel free to reach out. Best way is through an email, again, or through the website. My email is info@cucinamore.net. And as for social media, Facebook is probably the one that we are the most where we keep the most updated. I
Yeah.
try to be on Instagram too, but I'm not that great.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah, Facebook is a great page to be on. Yeah. Well, this continues to be a powerful time for us to love each other, to unite, and to live in peace. Thank you so much for joining me, Daniela. I honor the light in you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity of carving a little bit of joy in my day. I really thank you, Brigitta.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to Uno Souls Chat. You can find us at www.unosouls.com and on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I would love to hear from you if you would like to chat with me. Have a beautiful week and see you at the next episode.